What we see is people often don't understand what's needed. How do we actually help protect consumers? How do we find those solutions that are really creating value for them? Partnerships plays a big role for us. What we see with the partners that we work is often they have large followers, loyal customers that are using these platforms on a daily basis. It's always about iterating, learning, optimizing. Help those partners to optimize, create that value, make it seamless for consumers to purchase or get protected.
What do you think will be the biggest game changer in the coming few years?
Data is a key element. The recommendation to you could be given to you because the data already helps to support your decision making. And I think that will be a game changer.
Welcome to the Pulse Check podcast. Thomas Kapeller, Global Head of Partnership at Chubb. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Salomon. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we know each other since actually quite a while. You lived in Hong Kong, where I'm coming from, and we were both consultants back then. But before I go back into your history and your journey, maybe we start with the typical icebreaker. Tom, what makes you you?
A global citizen, lived in over 12 countries, lived and worked in over 12 countries. And that trickled through not just into living and working. I'm married to a French woman, and then I'm also having two boys. One was born in Hong Kong, that's where we met, and the other one was born here in Singapore. And what really makes me is that multicultural global citizen mindset, having lived in Europe, in Asia, in Australia, and then also in America, really kind of brought me and made me the person that I am today.
The global citizen. Maybe you can quickly elaborate your journey, and I'm very keen to understand how a consultant goes into insurtech and then back into a corporate life. Would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so similar to what you just mentioned, right, in consulting, and then you know that same as I do, it's always about building something. I have always enjoyed building enterprises, building new businesses, and taking on that challenge. Always looking at where are gaps, building business, supporting customers. In that sense, it was firms, partners, or banks, or insurance companies, and so on. Right? It's always about building something new and challenging yourself. Chubb has been when we started talking to Chubb, that mindset in terms of building, that's really something that I found in Chubb as well, in that role as global head of partnerships, building a business, working with partners collaboratively and solving problems and creating values for consumers and the partners.
And now you are on the other side. You work with fintech, with digital virtual banks as partners. So maybe you can describe a bit more around your role and how this is also now working for you, being on the other side, and what does it actually also mean, those partnerships? Talk a bit maybe also about embedded insurance, and for our listeners that they understand how this works.
Yeah, so at Chubb, partnerships plays a big role for us. And what it means for me as the global head of partnerships, it's actually the whole value chain with regards to having these conversations with partners and identifying who could be partners that are interesting to create value for themselves or for their consumers. And often these platforms are B2C partnerships that have loyalty, trust, and so on. So what we see with the partners that we work is often they have large followers, loyal customers that are using these platforms on a daily basis. It could be e-commerce platforms, it could be digital banks, it could be wallets, a diverse range of these partnerships. So in my role, having these conversations and seeing, what of these partners actually want to create more value for their consumers. Then that's where the protection angle comes in, potentially, where we consider what would insurance protection, what would the value be for the consumers for these platforms or fintechs or digital platforms that we're working with. Then the idea is, and what we are doing is, we're looking at how could such a proposition look like. And that requires, and what we see with these partners as we discuss with them, a deep understanding of, who is the consumer? Mm-hmm. What are they doing? Why they are here? And what creates value for them? After that, then, of course, right, there is commercial discussions. How can we, again, I'm speaking a lot about value, but how do we create value for the consumer? Fine. How do we create value for the platform that we work with or for the partner? And then, of course, also for Chubb, right? Because for us, we take on the underwriting risk. We take on, the responsibility to be there for our consumers to claim and to offer really high quality and great products to these consumers. Once you have done all of that and you onboarded the partner, that's when the real work starts. In a partnership world, right, it's always about iterating, learning, optimizing. So once we are there with our first hypothesis and idea, and whether that's an embedded journey, whether that's a standalone product that's offered to the consumers, then afterwards, the learning, the behavior of consumers, the iteration, the fast change of products on coverages and so on is the key part. And that's where Chubb and what we do is in terms of our services and support for those partners is really, going with people that have marketing expertise, data expertise, customer journey expertise, and so on, and help those partners to optimize and to create that value and make it seamless for consumers to purchase or get protected. So what I've described, this whole operating model, that is what I'm doing at Chubb. And then, of course, right, ultimately, delivering that across multiple jurisdictions and countries and markets.
Yeah, before going into the geographies and the complexities within, reflecting back again to your long experience in insurance and where we are now, where have you seen really some of the biggest movements also leading to embedded insurance and partnerships, and where do you see also the next years to come really in insurance holistically, not only within your role?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. And maybe I can give you a little bit of an example of a partner that we work with that very nicely reflects, how that evolution happens and how I see that's going to change. So we're working with a digital bank in Latin America. So when they came to us in 2020 and we started discussing with them about, similar to what I just explained to you before, right? What could be a value proposition for our consumers? They had a very deep understanding of not just the market they operate in, the people that live in that market, but also who are their consumers. Goes down to, understanding how much income they have, what they spend their money on. Obviously, digital banks have a lot of that data available, right? So, but that key was that deep understanding of the consumer. And then why did they choose Chubb to work with? Because we had the expertise of working with these platforms and can create tailor-made personalized products for this particular partner. So fast forward, and then the first product, and the interesting part here is it was a life insurance product that was sold digital. And when we spoke to that partner at the time, I think the sentiment, and then we see that in Asia quite a lot here, right? Low insurance penetration, often very intermediated distribution of life insurance products. But when we started working with them and they have identified, where could be the niche, where could be the angle for the consumers that are on our platform to help them close their protection gap. And once we started with that personalized proposition, and of course, there were iterations in terms of the products, how it evolved, but to make it very simple, very seamless to purchase. So that means it's a two-click journey. You don't have to put any payment information in. You don't have to populate a lot of underwriting questions, right? So it's very seamless, simple, and easy to purchase. And then with the right marketing message, fast forward with these partners, we have really a very successful story in terms of purely digital life insurance sales. Okay? So if you think back, at that time, I don't think anyone believed in the market, or it hasn't been a model that has been proven. But fast forward, I think there is much more trust and belief that digital purchasing, embedding products into journeys, but also having standalone digital distribution is something that resonates with consumers and with users of these digital platforms. And then there are a lot of things to unpack, because the people that also purchase it, you would think, who is thinking about life insurance? You know, what we have seen with this partner and the feedback that we are getting is actually people below 35 are actually purchasing these products. So you can see there is a lot to unbundle and a lot of learning to be taken from partnerships like that. And I think at Chubb we are learning a lot from these partnerships. But you can kind of also see where this journey is going. And I feel it's just the beginning. I think it's more and more coming to life that these digital partnerships can be a very successful way to reach to consumers. And at least that's what we are seeing, not just in Latin America, but also here in Asia with a lot of these partners that we're working with.
Yeah, you always say it, nice terms, creating value, basically for the end client, the client experience. I personally went through this, also having a boy and having to, of course, get a medical plan for him, health insurance, but also thinking about life. Before I was just going crazy, running my business and never thinking of life insurance. Then suddenly you realize, yeah, you need to protect, of course, also your family. And wanting to do this, of course, all digital immediately. And that was also used to certain offerings we had in Europe. So you just nicely explained the experience with a digital bank in Brazil, South America. There is, of course, a number of digital banks, virtual banks in Singapore and Hong Kong too. I still found it a bit difficult, and luckily I have a good friend of mine who is agent who then helped me, and it was a more manual journey. So also for him, a lot of data crunching and so on to get the life insurance that was maybe a bit unique. I didn't want to have an investment product, but really just a protection and so on. And I felt that, nowadays with also Gen AI and so on, I could quickly do this online and put in a few data points and then get it, print out, sign. It was not that easy. So tell me, I mean, first of all, are there also geographical differences that maybe virtual bank in Brazil is a bit ahead? I'm sure there's also comparable offerings here, but why is it often still a rather manual process, and where do you see this evolving in the coming years?
I don't think it needs to be a fully digital journey, first of all, right? Yeah. I think in partnerships, and I think to just set as a starting point the main principle with regards to why partnerships could be a good angle, to distribute insurance. It's about where are people, what are they doing? How do you create for them the awareness and give an opportunity to engage with the certain platforms, right? To give them education, what's needed. So you spoke about a platform that you used as an example to get information, you type something in, right? People have different ways on finding and engaging to find out what's needed for them. So the awareness creation can be done through partnerships. The engagement can be done through these platforms, but can be also other ways on whatever you mentioned, right? Where you look and search for information. Then how you purchase, you convert, right? How do you purchase? It can be, and it depends, right? Certain people have many people have different preferences, right? Not everyone is the same. So you have chosen, I trust my colleague and he connected me to someone. And then you took a path of an offline, in that sense, partnership to purchase this. Mm-hmm. Would be interesting to understand, why would you do that? What's the element that triggered you?
Honestly, I tried online first, and the product I was looking for, and maybe also being a bit in the mass affluent range of not just a basic product, but also not yet a high net worth tailored product. And there was not something immediately available, and any journey online would lead me to speak now to our agent. So might be also a bit a situation in Hong Kong. Again, in other markets, I've seen also differences. But you're right. I mean, there's different ways to go for it. And of course, also different preferences. That human touch with also talking to an agent, especially one you trust, of course, will likely be important also in the future. Right?
Yeah, you bring it absolutely to the point. Trust is the element.
Mm-hmm.
Trust is the element. And then, of course, products play a role as well. Certain products, you spoke about a family plan, and you may have certain, maybe not so generic or straightforward requirements that you might have for you and your family, right? So you have a certain education, perspective, and expectation towards a certain product. And that requires often an intermediated or an agent, a broker, or someone that can help you, explain and maybe even tailor the product, personalize it for you. Right? So this is definitely something, where, the awareness can be generated similar to what you mentioned before through a platform, and we have our Google searches, we have, AI searches nowadays, right, where a lot of information can be observed. But then you might have the trust to a certain person, and the personalization in terms of the product happens, through that, colleague, friend, agent, broker. At Chubb, we have the same. The question is, and you spoke about Asia and the geographic differences, right? A market like Hong Kong might have more access to people that you can ask. If you have bigger countries, right, and every country is very different, the access might not be so simple, right, and to reach out. But what is simple, that day-to-day, usage of an e-wallet that helps you with payments, or with remittances, or with lending, or with, online shopping, e-commerce, right? So you have access to that. So how can we actually work with the population then that's using those platforms to give them access to, the protection needs and the awareness engagement, and then how they purchase the product? That's really up to the user as well. So it could be that, that first part, you should have it, because your family should be protected, whether that's health, life, or any general insurance products, it is available. So that's an awareness creation first. Then you engage, how should that plan look like? You maybe do your research a little bit more. Then how you purchase, and at Chubb, we are absolutely recognizing that as well. It doesn't need to be only on the platform. It could also be that you are connected then from that platform to someone that, helps you in terms of understanding what's the product, what's your need, especially if you have questions. And then especially if you want more tailored and personalized product. What we see with a lot of the digital platforms, right, where, the needs maybe not as sophisticated. It's a basic entry that it often, and also it's a demographic question that we see, and the feedback that we hear from these platforms is that maybe sometimes people don't want to talk to someone. They have done the research before. They're very clear, and we see that even in Asia, in Vietnam as an example, where we work with a digital bank. A lot of the education and even discussion on what's needed has been done prior to purchasing. And it could be through an agent, could be through a broker, could be through a friend. The moment you are clear you want to buy it, maybe you don't want to buy it from an offline channel. Then you go to the platform that you trust also, where you have your loyalty, and you purchase it directly there. And there's a lot of feedback that we get from these platforms that people that purchase through these platforms actually know exactly what they want. Just they feel more trust to that platform and purchase it directly there.
Yeah, so brings me to maybe the crux of it, the key question, if you can share. What do you think will be the biggest game changer in the coming few years, or maybe something you're working on? So don't share, of course, any confidential projects, but something that will really also change the way we as customers also purchase protection insurance. Anything that comes up to mind that you're able to share?
Yeah, so I think I'm stitching all of the points together, right? I think what you see here, and we spoke about these platforms and partnerships, data is a key element. And what we see and the feedback from some of the platforms that we're working with, and even in Southeast Asia, where there are huge populations of people, what we see is people often don't understand what's needed. How much coverage do I need? So there are at Chubb, the way we are thinking of the data teams, the marketing teams, the customer journey teams. What we are looking at is how can we actually help those consumers to help them, find protection tailored for them, because through our partners we understand who that person is. So if you play it through and take it a bit forward, right, in your scenario, there is so much information about Salomon that, actually fine, you research, but the recommendation to you, whether that's a general insurance, health insurance, life insurance product, could be given to you because, the data already helps to support your decision making. And I think that will be a game changer, because then I think the idea of being able to be protected for your needs in terms of what you do, versus making a conscious decision, I have to purchase something, but I don't even know, is that the right thing? Or even, thinking a bit further, who can actually tell me what do I need, will become maybe a secondary point. But then that's a bit fast forward in the future in terms of that data enabled.
Yeah, I like that. Again, I do a lot of sports, running, but I'm also active and in the mountains. There's for sure also certain risks associated. So I'm probably more healthy than others in their 40s, but I might also be more exposed to certain risks. And I think there is definitely a lot of good data elements that could help on the insurance side, of course, to offer me the right products tailored towards my needs. And a lot of things I'm not even aware of that I should be better protected in. And again, I can try to ask my friend, but even he, of course, has a certain experience, certain knowledge, and may not tap into all type of different scenarios, life scenarios, and different customer needs. And having that available, of course, makes it powerful for both sides. So maybe last but not least, reflecting again back to your personal journey and maybe also an outlook. If you may, can you share maybe 1 or 2 points of really times in your life where you felt maybe I would have gone a different way? And forward looking, where do you see yourself in 10 years from now? I know it's long.
That's a very good question. Different way, I don't think I would have done anything differently than what I have done now. I think having been able to live in so many countries and now being in Asia, where I really feel, and then you must know the same, you must see it the same day in and day out, right? It's a very diverse, continent.
Yeah.
From east down to the south, right? Everywhere is so diverse, right? And there is so much happening, so much innovation. And I'm very happy to be here also with Chubb to actually explore that innovation and, help and protect people and give them access to, the needs that they have for their families, for themselves. It's really a very rewarding journey, and I'm very happy where I am at the moment. And then that's just on the professional side. On the personal side, we spoke about our families as well. I'm very happy that, everyone is healthy and we live in a very secure place in the world. In terms of the next 10 years and where I would want to go, I think I want to still continue. There is, I've just joined Chubb around 6 months ago. I think there is so much more potential in terms of, what we can do together with our partners. And not just with the partners, but also with the people that are on these platforms. And it links a bit back to, how do we actually help protect consumers, right? How do we reach out to them? How do we find those solutions that are really creating value for them? And then through that, make the world a better place. And then also through that, grow together with our partners, with Chubb, and then also, have these protection needs. And I think for the next 10 years, there's plenty of things to do. I really hope that, these, partnerships help us to achieve those targets, to do those things. And then, we'll see where we'll be in 10 years.
Nicely said. Tom Kapeller, the global citizen, but also change maker, I would say. As you rightfully said, it's all about partnerships, and I'm so happy to be in a time where both banking and insurance companies, they look into open banking, open finance, embedded insurance, and it's definitely a much better place if you collaborate. And while sometimes people think our banking and insurance is boring, actually it's so important for our lives, and yes, you can make the world a better place if people are rightfully protected and have the right financing. So with this, I want to thank you, of course, again to being a guest today. Where can we find you and maybe more information about Chubb?
Generally, just reach out. You find a lot of contacts in Chubb across Asia, but globally, on websites or even on LinkedIn, on other social platforms where you can reach out if you want to hear more. Otherwise, you will find myself here in Singapore. And to your last point, and maybe to close, right? Always when people ask me, and the answer causes often a bit of a smile, right? When people ask me, what do you do? My answer is always, I work in the most exciting, innovative, and growing industry in the whole world. And then I say insurance, and that's when the smile comes up. But I really believe it, because there is so much change and so much help coming up for an innovative products that it really is a very exciting industry.
Absolutely. And if I'm running on top of a mountain, I'm glad that I'm also protected or my family is protected. No, you summarize it well. Thank you so much for this, Tom. So likewise, of course, you can find us online, YouTube, Spotify, where we see this episode, pulse check of Synpulse 8. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks, Tom, once again for being a guest today.
Thank you, Salomon.